Welcome back, one and all, to Six Quantum Bridge podcast. This is your host, analyst and researcher, Bernadette. First and foremost, I want to say thank you, all of you, for showing me so much love because I just got the stats back from Spotify and wow, you guys like me. You really, really like me. I love it. I love it. Thank you guys. Oh my gosh, I'm building my little family here. It's really humbling in a good way to see just how much of an impact your work is having on people, not just here in the United States, but all over the world. And I couldn't have done this without Jesus. He knew that I had this in me the entire time. And what's basically happening here, not just with me, but across many sectors across the world, and we'll get into that in just a minute, is that we're seeing the pendulum swing back to 0 point. I started this work back in 2014, but didn't get heavy into it until 2016. And of course, you have your people that are kind of like riding your coattails, and when you're the original, you're going to have a lot of industry plants that are planted by the enemy to try to knock you off your square. But as God would have it, I have seen the actual stats and wow, it's like I had no idea that I had grown that much. Very humbled. Thank you guys very, very much. I can never thank you enough, really. It's very humbling in a very sweet, warm way. I do feel like I have a small little family here, and it's not just here in the States. It's all over. I have listenership all over the world, and I'm very humbled, truly, by that. Thank you so much. So let's get into how the pendulum has swung in many facets. I feel like that's the best way to kind of close out the year and start the year anew with new, fresh content. And you'll be the first guys and gals, to know exactly what's happening and what's on the trajectory. Okay. Now we're seeing a lot of pendulum swings, especially where Christianity is concerned. And if you've been paying attention, it's happening on a mass scale. This gentleman, Leo Skebby, I think it's Skebby or Skippy? Skebby, right? I have to double check. But he has single-handedly become a force to be reckoned with, because this is a man that wasn't interested in reading the Bible before, but now, in his own words, he said that his soul wants to find out about this. His soul wants to read about Jesus. And he was reading the Old Testament for a while, but he was like, I can't take these. What's the word that he used? Misbehaving. They don't behave at all in the Old Testament, because the Old Testament is about the history and the New Testament is where we're going, okay? As long as we stay on this straight and narrow path. So he skipped over to the New Testament and find out directly about Jesus. And he has his questions and everything, and this is why us Christians are supposed to be there to try to help answer the questions. But then you have these, they call themselves Christians, but if you're going to be getting on this man for his cursing, really? Are we losing the plot that much that you're so focused on the cursing coming out of his mouth than him attempting to learn about Christ, which is the point? Even Christ himself wasn't about religion, okay? It's about having a relationship with him, not about the religion. He came here to oppose and basically point the finger at the people that were using religion to keep people trapped, to try to gatekeep heaven. So, if anything, Jesus is the OG rebel here. Okay, so somebody like Leo, I think would resonate with Jesus a lot, because Jesus himself was a rebel. Okay, so it's just beautiful to see. He has over 10 million followers. Okay, so this man is huge in terms of reach and influence. That's true reach and true influence. Okay, and the potential there is beautiful to wake a lot of people up. So, and it happened with Jeffree Star too. Jeffree was reading Bible verses on his live the other day, and he got emotional as well. And people like Leo, people like Jeffree are who Jesus holds close to his heart. He came to heal the sick and brokenhearted and the ones that question things. Okay, Jesus loves questions. Okay, so first and foremost, I'd like to thank him formally for all of the growth that I've seen, because it's not my own doing. Okay, he knew I had this in me. He knew of my potential. So the results are just a result of my own potential being shown out there. Anyway, so let's get into the pendulum swing and what we have seen. Okay. Now, I do have it listed in my notes here. So we're seeing pendulum swings everywhere in modern culture. I'll just tell you that much. And many of them are positive corrections. Okay. So, for instance, music. Vinyl records had disappeared, but they came roaring back. So a lot of vintage things are coming back. Things that are considered vintage, they're coming back, all right? And Illustrate Magazine and IndiePulse Music both report that vinyl sales are surging again in 2025. Proof that authenticity and artistry never die. Now, this is important because back in the day, and this is back in 2007 when I met my twin flame, my hubby, my baby, he was heavy into vinyl records because he's a DJ. He needs to have those records there, right? He needs to have the physical records there. And, I saw his collection is quite extensive. He has a lot of vinyl records, okay? So this is going to be great for him to be able to collect again. Because everything had been digitized and everything. It's like, and if you're a purist like he is and a purist like I am, it's like you like to have the old-fashioned crackle of the vinyl, the needle hitting the vinyl. There's just something so comforting about hearing the crackle and pop of the vinyl record when it starts playing your favorite music, okay? And I'm seeing that we're going to get back into that. We might get back into like retro things like cassette tapes, CDs, and CDs were kind of like a little more advanced, but it might go back to retro things being made more popular now. I'm seeing a resurgence in retro things being made modernized. Okay. So let me put my glasses back on so that I don't lose the plot here. Okay. Now, fashion. Sustainable clothing is rising after years of fast fashion dominance. Okay, you have your Fashion Nova and Shane and all of that other stuff, and we're seeing kind of a return to sustainable clothing. Now, according to Sigma Earth and SustainZone, they highlight how circular fashion and secondhand luxury are reshaping style in 2025. The pendulum swing is toward responsibility. This means a lot of people are getting into thrifting. Okay. You can find some really cute things in thrift stores. I'm going to tell you personally, as somebody that's really high into 50s fashion specifically, I've always loved retro vintage fashion. And quite honestly, I feel like that's my niche. It's like I don't really mesh well with the modern stuff that they're selling out there. Like I always try to find the retro things because it just fits my body well. It just looks good on my body. It looks good on my face, like with the hairstyles and the makeup and everything. And I was rockabilly for a while, and I kind of like, because it was considered a little extreme, a little bit from my job and where I was working and everything. I couldn't come in with you know the big hair with the victory rolls and the huge flower and all of that stuff. You couldn't really express yourself too much, but I'm kind of getting back into that, right? Because now everything is hybrid, and my job is hybrid. So I'll kind of follow the rules when I'm in the office, but when I'm home, I'm going to be dressed the way that I want to be dressed. Okay. Running errands and everything, you have I have my whole get up and everything, but I've come back home, so yeah. And the rockabilly, gothabilly, psychobilly community, they're very, very warm and welcoming. And I found my people, so that's kind of a side note there. And I'm seeing a lot of the return back to yesteryear fashion. And it's very apparent in how many stores there are available to be able to dress that way that you want. I'm seeing my swing dresses and my wiggle dresses and my capri pants and all of my peep toe pumps and all of that, all of the beautiful stuff that I loved to wear back in the day. I can wear it again and everything. It's like, and I feel so much better that it's just highly and readily available now. So anyway, that's a side note. As I said, work culture. I had mentioned this a few moments ago. Remote work was rare. Okay. You would never hear about that before, but since the pandemic, things have changed where back then it was the norm. Okay. Because you had to be away from everybody else because of the, distancing, the social distancing. And then it became the norm. And now hybrid balance is giving people the flexibility and community so that, you're not spending all your time holed up in your house. You have to actually physically get up to the office maybe 3 times a week, 2 times a week, depending on your company's schedule. And it's a good balance, because you get to, have that social aspect, so that you're not basically becoming a hermit, right? But you still have the comforts and the conveniences of home, like maybe 2 or 3 times a week. So you don't have that constant having to be under those fluorescent lights all the time. Okay. Which is better for your health, because I can't take the fluorescent lights 5 days a week. So, it's just, but that's just me. I'm looking at my notes here. Hold on a second. MIT, Sloan Management Review, and Phys, that's phys.org, confirmed that hybrid work is stabilizing as the future of employment. I think that's a good balance. Both employee and employer are happy because they pay for the overhead for the rental of that space or the leasing of that space. They need to have bodies there, so they get what they need. You get what you need, that you're not in there 5 days out of the week, and you have all of your head and your eyes, especially if you have light sensitivity like me, you're not ingesting all of those fluorescent lights 5 days out of the week. You get sick. I physically got sick at my last job from that. So, and I'm also an older woman, so it's like it's going to affect me quicker, longer, and more severely than my younger counterpart. So, continuing, beauty standards have changed as well. Faces with character are being celebrated. McKinsey's State of Beauty Report 2025 shows inclusivity and individuality are now central to campaigns. Wrinkles, scars, unique bone structures, and diverse features are now front and center, which means that back in the day, a bigger nose would never be celebrated. But now they look for that. They look for a strong nose. They look for, facial features that have not been celebrated before, because they're realizing that in order for people, there's a psychology, a sales psychology to that. Okay. They're realizing that not just conventionally pretty, quote unquote, people buy their clothes. If they really want to make money, they have to extend it to everyone. Everyone wants to feel pretty. Okay. So they have to show real people, not airbrushed perfection. Okay. Gone are the days of the teeny nose and the blown up lips. And, we're seeing a trend away from dermal filler faces, lip injection faces, more to natural proportions. Okay. Depending on what the fashion entity wants, they'll either look for strong jawline, let's say, I mean, high cheekbones have always been in. That's kind of a model thing. And, but along with that, a lot of people that have high cheekbones like me do tend to have larger noses. Okay. Or strong, I like to say strong, prominent noses. Okay. And basically they're not curated perfection. There is perfection in the imperfection, or what people can perceive as an imperfection, like a bump on the nose, right? If you look from profile, you see the little bump on the nose. They're not, we're steering away from the, excuse me, curated perfection, which I don't know how that's going to translate for the cosmetic surgery industry. They're probably going to see a loss because of that, because it goes hand in hand. The cosmetic surgery industry can only make money if the fashion industry and the beauty industry dictate this is what is considered perfect. And then they make the money by adhering to that. So they can't make any money if the fashion and the beauty industry are opting for more natural faces, okay, that don't look Bratz doll perfection. So we're seeing a swing in that, and I love it. I love it. Okay. This, I would say, is a cultural correction toward authenticity. Now let's talk about food and wellness. Processed convenience ruled, okay? But now organic and whole foods are mainstream. Now, the only thing they have to work on is making it more affordable, because as it stands, and it hasn't really changed, you have your Whole Foods, your Trader Joe's, your Sprouts, okay? You have all of that, but you need to make it accessible to those of us that are either low income, or, that we are a single budget. A lot of people are single mothers raising, more than one child. And in order for them to get more healthy things into their body, you have to make it more accessible to those that don't have a 2-income household or are not making a lot of money. And for those that are on SNAP, make it so that you give them enough that they can accommodate for the rising cost of organic food, which is kind of a double-edged sword, if you ask me. If you think about it, think of how they're trying to manipulate us, right? They make the crappy food more affordable than the good food, than the organic food, which forces people, especially poorer people, to consume the crap. Because you know what? They want to kill the poor people off. That's another episode entirely, but I'm not exactly wrong. Okay? When you purposely make the good organic food more expensive than the crappy food that has all these things injected into it, things that in other countries would be considered poisonous, then you're trying to kill off the poor people. Because what can the poor people afford? They can only afford the crappy version of the food. And it's on purpose. Make the crappy stuff more affordable than the good stuff, because they don't want the poor people to survive for very long, because then we keep having to pay for them through our taxes, right? No. Listen, I'm a working girl myself, okay? You need to take some out of my taxes to help a single mother? Go ahead and do that, okay? I'm not about to take away from a child, okay? It's not about the mother, okay? Whatever the mother's choices were, that's on her, but there is an innocent child here, okay? That didn't ask to be born, and they need to be fed, okay? That's my priority. Not the single mother, but the child that is of the single mother, okay? Because whatever, okay? That's another episode entirely. But, and I'm not shaming single mothers. Let's not do that. Let's not read into that what's not there, okay? I'm talking about irresponsibility and all of that stuff. If you've been, like your husband died or whatever, and you got left because he's an asshole, whatever, I'm not talking to you as a single mother. I'm talking, irresponsibility, and you have a child to take care of. And listen, my priority is the child, not you. Okay. Anyway, again, that's a completely other episode, but whatever. Processed convenience food ruled, but now organic and whole foods are now being the mainstream, as I said before. The Organic Trade Association's 2025 market report shows organic food sales climbing steadily, with Yahoo Finance projecting the market to reach over $400 billion globally by 2032. The pendulum swung toward health, okay? We need this, but we need to make it more accessible and affordable, please, guys. And I know that there are farmers that need to be, it's complicated and it's nuanced, because there are farmers that need to be paid, okay, to continue to feed us, okay? So we need to take care of our farmers so that they can take care of us, okay? Let's talk about the positive spiritual pendulum swings. Now, spiritually, we are seeing the pendulum swing towards truth and restoration. Faith in public spaces. After years of silence, people are openly sharing their testimonies again, which I love. I love it. Talk it. We need to hear this, okay? People need to know that they have their community. Us humans, Homo sapiens, okay? We, by very design, are a social breed, a social organism, okay? We need to know that we're not alone in what we're experiencing, which is why social media was supposedly invented in the first place, to give people community, okay? And to make such a big world feel a little bit more smaller, a little more intimate, okay? Let's look at the community worship portion of this. Churches are reviving collective prayer and fellowship after isolation. So we're reaching out, okay? And there's more of especially in the aforementioned examples of Jeffree Star and Leo Skebi. Skebi or Skebi? I think it's Skebi. I'm going to have to double check. But we all know who we're talking about, okay? muscular guy, bald guy. Okay. Yeah. Big, bright smile. That guy. Let's talk about the scripture clarity. While misinterpretations rise, the truth always returns. The fact that we have things like, for instance, on Threads, they have this little tool. I don't know if you guys have seen it, where you can request a community note if somebody says something false or tries to misinterpret things, because I see it a lot in the communities outside of the Christian community, that they try to take things that were doctrine and try to give it a spin to try to get people to basically lose their souls. Okay. For instance, the whole, I'm gonna say I have seen it, especially amongst the witch community, and I'm not saying every witch is doing that. So let's just put that out there. There are witches that don't even talk about this, that just are interested in practicing their craft and not getting into the whole religious discussion to try to clickbait, right? But then you have the clickbaity witches, okay, the ones that are just interested in driving engagement no matter who it harms. And they're over here saying that 666 is not demonic. Okay. Meanwhile, it says it in Revelation, but whatever. Yeah, where do you come up with this stance? Obviously, you wouldn't come up with this stance if you didn't have a Bible, right? Because, I mean, you're pulling that out of your ass. I mean, it's common knowledge that 666 is listen, and you're talking to somebody that used to study numerology, okay? Now I study gematria, okay, which is more advanced than numerology. I'm going to tell you that much. But with the numerology, it's like, listen, there is the study of numbers, but the biblical scriptural version of studying the weight and energy of numbers is completely different in description from the widespread mainstream numerology version of it. So 666 in the Bible is different than 666 in numerology. Okay, and let me tell you something. I'm not going to go with other people's interpretations of what was already set forth scripturally. So if the Bible says it is 666 is a demon's number, I'm avoiding that number. Okay. I'm avoiding that number like the plague it is. Okay. Because it's attached to an entity that is not for our growth. He doesn't like us. That number is attached to something that wants to see us die, that doesn't like us. I don't care if he gives you money and gives you this and gives you that. Listen, that's the equivalent of trying to lure a child off the playground with candy and your white van is right there. That's what Satan is. That's what he is. And the people that believe that 666 is not a demonic number, you're that child on the playground being lured into the van. Yeah, I mean, quite an illustration, quite a metaphor, I know, but listen, I'm known for that. People need to piece together what I'm saying with pictures that they can compartmentalize and put those things together. Jesus did the same thing. He spoke in metaphor all the time, in parable all the time. Okay? I'm in good company. So, anyway. All of these that I have mentioned, the fashion, the music, all of it, the food, all of it, are signs of restoration and not collapse. Now, we'll talk about my personal pendulum swing. I'm going to talk about the stats according to Spotify. Okay. Oh, I'm so excited to say this. Okay. So my own testimony. This is how I've grown. My podcast audience grew 859% in 1 year. The listening time increased to 670%. My show reached 25 countries. Hi, everybody. Spotify named me a 2025 Rising Star, outpacing 97% of other shows. My show was shared more than 89% of other podcasts. Thanks, you guys. Oh my gosh, I'm so humbled. Thank you. Thank you in every language that has shown me love. Teach me how to say thank you in your language and I'll say it. So thank you in your language. These aren't just numbers. They're receipts of my own restoration. The pendulum is swung back to my rightful place, and I give all glory to Jesus because he's the one that did it. Okay? And if you know anything about me, ladies and gentlemen, I'm like a locomotive with no brakes. Okay? Somebody cut the brake line on that, and there's no stopping me. Okay? So if you're not on the train with me, get the fuck out of the way because then you're going to get run over. Okay? Get off them tracks. Okay? There's one biblical account that I can reference off the top of my head that kind of highlights everything that we've been talking about. Joseph's restoration. Joseph's story in Genesis 37 to 50 is the ultimate pendulum swing. It is. Betrayed, abandoned, imprisoned, and yet God elevated him to second in command of Egypt, saving nations from famine. His betrayal became the setup for his restoration. And that's what's happening now. Betrayal didn't stop me. Mimicry didn't erase me. The pendulum swung back and Jesus restored me to elevation. And it's only going to get better from here, ladies and gentlemen. Now, you guys need to know, the pendulum doesn't swing to punish. It swings to restore. In culture, in society, in fashion, in media, and in my own life. My rise is not just mine. It's part of a larger correction happening everywhere. So, friends, when you see the pendulum swing, remember Joseph, remember restoration, and remember that Jesus is the one who makes it happen. All glory and praise to you. Love you. And I love you guys. Thank you in your individual languages. Thank you. And big, big hugs to you because it's you guys that I have in my heart when I make these podcast episodes. Again, thank you for your love. And I will see you in the next one and in the next year and in the years to come. Thank you so much again. Please follow for more. I have a lot of things that are planned for the new year. Please stay tuned and you'll know when you know. Okay, I can't say too much right here because I don't know who's listening. I mean, not everybody that listens to me is my friend. Okay, but yeah. I love you guys and I'm truly humbled. Thank you.